How's it doing, FM? Welcome to the first episode of our AI series. Now, I've created this series to specifically speak about a technology that I believe is going to transform the way that we live. This is going to impact everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're in IT or you're not in IT. If you do not understand this technology or see where it's actually going, you might find yourself left behind. So it's really going to be important for you to sign up for the series, because I'm going to be releasing more videos, really speaking about important things to understand and how AI is really going to be shaping our future. So please make sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you get notified whenever I release a new video. Now, in terms of what I'm going to be covering today, so today I'm going to look at the history, right? I think it's very important for us to understand where exactly does this technology actually come from, right? Because looking at it now, it's very, very complicated and it's very complex. But in essence, this is a journey that has actually taken over 70 years. This is a journey of 70 years. AI started 70 years ago, and it's been a trial and error up until the point that we are at. So in this video, I'm going to break down where we started, the issues we had up until the point we are at right now, and hopefully you will get an understanding of what exactly is AI and where exactly does this technology actually come from. Without wasting any time, let's get into it. Before we go to the 1950s, which is where AI actually started, I want us to sort of explain what exactly is AI, right? In simple terms, AI stands for artificial intelligence, right? It's really about this idea that systems could sort of be as intelligent as humans, right? It's really about giving machines the ability to do things that humans actually do, right? We can reason and we can make decisions, right? We want machines to actually be able to do that. We can see objects and be able to say that is this is a MacBook, this is a book, this is a plant and stuff like that, right? And we train those machines to be able to make those decisions. And in essence, we are creating artificial intelligence, right? It's intelligence that we actually giving to the machines through training them through various data sets. In essence, simple terms, the most simplest definition, that is what artificial intelligence is all about. Now let's go to the 1950s, right? Because this is where AI actually started, right? All of this started with someone called Alan Turing. So Alan Turing was a famous British mathematician, right? He was really good at what he does, and he solved quite a lot of problems back in his days, and he even played a significant role in the war and all of that. So what he was curious about is what exactly classifies a machine as intelligence, right? That's the question he had. What makes a machine intelligent, right? That is the question that you had. To actually validate this, he created something called the Turing Test. Now, in simple terms, what the Turing Test is really about, it says that if you can have let's say you can have a conversation with a machine to an extent that you can't even tell if it's a person speaking to you or it's actually a machine, then that's intelligent. In today's world, if you are sending text messages to a person and then the person switches with a machine, now you're speaking to a machine, and you can't really tell whether you're still speaking to a person or a machine, you feel like it's actually still a person, right? That was the test. So if machines could actually mimic the way that we speak and stuff like that, that would actually be seen as intelligence. So the Turing test was basically that. If you cannot tell a difference when you're having a conversation between a machine and a person, then that means that the machine actually has intelligence. Simple terms, that was the whole idea. But now this idea actually sparked a lot of excitement, because between the period of the 1950s all the way to 1956, people actually got really excited by this concept. This idea or concept of a machine sort of like getting to the point where it can actually be intelligent. It can actually mimic human behavior was such an amazing concept to these people, right? It was something that was really exciting to a lot of computer people, the science people. And what happened is that in 1956, there was something called the Dartmouth Conference. Now, this is where they actually gave AI a name. Honestly, this is when AI was actually named, because the word AI actually came at that point. So what happened at this conference is that it was a group of people that believed that they could actually crack the intelligence. They could actually build artificially intelligent systems. That was the belief that they had, and they promised that they would actually do this in 10 years. So what happened is that they put together some of the smartest brains at the time into this conference room and stuff like that, and they threw the best computers. They had the best computers available and stuff like that. And this was actually started by two very important figures that you're going to learn about later, which is John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky. So these are very important figures. They led sort of like this sort of initiative, and there was a lot of optimism. People generally believed that this was going to work out really badly, that companies started throwing millions and billions in investing into this. The best minds in the world were all flocking into discovering this whole new thing, that there is a possibility of actually building intelligent systems, and everyone was like, this could actually change the way that we think about everything, right? So everything was good. There was labs, money was flowing in and stuff like that. But now fast forward a little bit to the 1958 to 1969. So now in 1958, there was a gentleman by the name of Frank Rosenblatt. These names can be quite hectic. So Frank Rosenblatt invented something called the perceptron. Now, the perceptron was something that was of very high significance, because this actually gave people more hope, right? So the perceptron was basically the very first machine that could learn. This was the very first machine that could actually learn, right? There was, all of this time people were just thinking about this thing. It was all hype and stuff like that, but someone built the very first machine that could actually learn. And the design of the perceptron, if you look at it, it actually mimics the way that our neurons actually works as human. If you guys did biology, you know there's this structure of the neuron and stuff like that. It was basically structured in the same way as the human neurons and stuff like that. So this was the first machine that could actually learn and all of that. So this really brought a lot of excitement, and there was so much publicity. There was hope that this thing, this artificial intelligence thing, is actually real and it could actually happen, right? But in 1969, the very same people that started the Dartmouth Conference, right? You remember them, Minsky and Pepper. I think his name is Puppet, right? Yeah, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correct. These names can be quite interesting. So Minsky, they published a book, and this book actually proved the limitation of the perceptron. Now, the very technology that gave a lot of hope to people believe that this was actually going to work out, was actually crashed. And very interestingly, they showed the limitation of the perceptron, right? Because if you think about the perceptron, was a very simplified way of solving problems. It could only solve something that they call linearly separable problems, right? But some of the problems are complex. Some problems are not as straightforward as what the perceptron actually was able to solve. So they showed that actually there was so many problems that the perceptron couldn't solve, and the real world is very complicated and very complex. So it was very clear that the perceptron was not going to work. There's a mathematical formula around how they actually prove that this thing is not working, or there's so many examples out there that you can actually go and read more about. But it basically proved that the world is complex and the perceptron was not complex, was not able to solve the complex problems that the world actually had. That single book actually crashed everyone's hope about AI and what AI could actually do for humanity. And because of that, this actually started something really bad, something that they called the AI winter. So between the 1970s and 1980s, this was something they called the AI winter. This was really the worst time to be in the artificial intelligence space, or even be thinking about researching AI. You know, no one would actually take you serious and stuff like that, right? And the problem came from the fact that there's people overpromise, right? Listen, the AI bubble that we have right now, there were people that actually believed in the very same way in AI at that time. I'm talking about the 1960s, people believing that they could build intelligent systems, which is something we only sort of achieved 70 years later, or we're still trying to get to that point. So the AI bubble was real at that time, honestly, because everyone really believed that this technology was going to work. Everyone was like, we can solve this in 10 years. They put everything that they could. Now, because they overpromised, companies were not so happy because now all of the money was lost and no results actually came. And the very symbol of hope, the Perceptron, was actually shut down. So it was a really bad period. Companies pulled off funding and there was literally no funding available for anything AI related. Now, if there's no money funding anything, why would anyone even pursue AI and stuff like that? And when you went to the 1980s, they started sort of pursuing something called expert systems, right? So in simple terms, these were systems that you would sort of like get someone with a sort of like expertise in something. They'll put together the knowledge and stuff like that, and they'll build a system around it, and the system would basically access the knowledge or the rules of how, let's say, in that industry things actually work. So they were actually doing great. They were actually very useful for some time until people were like, maybe these expert systems are getting too complicated, they're not really gonna be what we want. I feel like people realize actually they needed more than those expert systems. But during this winter, something important was actually happening, right? The people that I'm going to introduce later as the three godfathers of AI, they were one of the few people that believe that actually it is still possible to build artificial intelligent systems. So in the period where everyone was giving up on AI, there's three people spent time researching and improving the ideas that did not work because of the issues at that time. So they spent decades just learning about the neural networks and stuff like that. They never gave up on the idea, but we'll learn about them as we go further on their comeback, basically, right? But really, the AI winter was a period that, if you genuinely did not believe in AI, it was very easy for you to give up. The real people that believed in AI are those that actually survived the AI winter. If you still believed in AI and survived the AI, you were one of the real people that believed in this technology and that actually saw where this technology was actually going. In 1986, something very important started to happen. Now, remember the people that believed in AI and they kept on working while everyone did not believe in AI? Well, they started to come back. Now, in 1986, Jeffrey Hinton, one of the three people that are regarded as the AI godfathers, actually popularized something called backpropagation. Now, backpropagation was very important. Backpropagation basically meant that now machines could actually learn from their mistakes. So if a machine made a decision, that decision was wrong, it could actually learn from that mistake and actually keep on getting better and better. So machines could learn from their mistakes and actually become better. Now, this was very, very important because this solved a very important problem that actually killed the Perceptron. Right? The Perceptron is something that gave everyone a lot of hope, but so it's sort of not that hopeful anyway. But now they brought back the whole idea of neural networks and stuff because the Perceptron is a very, very simplified version of a neural network type of thing. But now they brought back neural networks, and this really solved the very important aspect. Now, the three godfathers of deep learning now started to appear, right? These are the people that then popularized the idea of neural networks and deep learning, right? The three godfathers are Hinton, right? LeCun and Bengio. Now, if you look them up today, they have done quite a lot in the AI space. They have really contributed quite a lot, and the three of them actually have won a Nobel Prize for computing. So that actually shows you like how great they are. So they won the Turing Award, basically the Nobel Prize and stuff like that. So it's something really amazing because they never gave up. When everyone gave up, they still believe, because they spent years doing important work while the world ignored AI. They were doing it for free while everyone actually gave up on this amazing technology, right? Now, let's go a little bit further. In the 1980s to the early 2000s, right? So something happened, right? If you guys think about it, in the early 1990s, right, computers got exponentially faster. Computers got better and better and better. So there's this thing, I think it's called Moore's laws. Moore's laws basically says that computers actually gets better, twice as faster each and every single year. So basic computers are getting better and better and better, right? So this was very important because powerful computers actually meant that neural networks would be put, because neural networks actually required a lot of compute. So having computers that were strong enough, that means we now had the hardware to make this possible. And what started to happen is that even banking, banks started using these models and stuff like that for fraud detection, search engine rankings and stuff like that. We started to see more companies. Now, this is very important, because now more companies are starting to use this technology. This actually started to bring investment slowly, right? People sort of like started investing in this technology because someone actually showed that actually this could work, right? So money and research and development was starting to be thrown into this area. Now, fast forward, these are the three most important events, or the most important days within AI. Now, 2012, very important. There was a competition called ImageNet. So ImageNet was basically a computer vision competition where people will come up with solutions on how machine learning or AI could actually be able to identify images and stuff like that, right? So basically a computer vision competition using AI to identify whether this is a book, this is a table, this is a cup, and all of that, right? So that was the whole idea, to see if computers could actually recognize our physical world. Now, what happened is that one of the AI godfathers, Jeffrey Hinton, right, he joined the competition with some of his students. So at the time, I think he was now sort of like a professor, right? So he was now a professor. He also worked for Google for a good number of years, but then he went to become a professor. So in his time as a professor, he joined this ImageNet competition, and they created something called I think it was called AlexNet, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So it was a game changer because they created something that was more accurate at basically identifying to say objects or images better than human beings, right? This was the first time AI had actually done something better than how people would. It was so accurate at identifying objects better than people themselves, right? And this is really amazing because this actually showed that this technology could actually work. It gave people more hope that actually we are onto something really big. And also at that time, NVIDIA, they also started to see, because they saw this, they were like, actually, this is going to be important. And they started investing in building the hardware that would power AI for the future. Fast forward today, you guys can see how big NVIDIA actually is. And they're the company that supplies the compute for AI and stuff like that. And all of this actually started here. Now, going to 2016, which is also a very, very, very important period. Now, this is when AlphaGo beats the world Go champion. So there's a game called Go. It's one of those board games, very sort of similar to chess, right? AlphaGo was basically a company created by someone who also has played a very massive role in the AI space. I think he's the founder of DeepMind, a company that was acquired by Google, right? So they basically went into a very different approach. They used games to actually train machine learning models and stuff like that because they believe it was the best way to actually train them. So they focused on building games and seeing if games could actually beat people. So in 2016, one of their games, AlphaGo, sort of like models, beat the world's best sort of like Go player, right? The world champion was actually beat by a computer. This was very important because this actually proved that computers could actually be better at humans at doing things. Now, this is the second instance. We are moving from images now, moving from a game. Now, a year later, something very important also happened. Now, what happened was that transformers were actually developed. So the transformer architecture was actually developed and the paper was written, "Attention is all you need." Now, transformers are the reason why we even have OpenAI today, or ChatGPT, Claude. None of this would have been possible without the transformer architecture. Those models are still using the transformer architecture till today. There's nothing better than the transformer architecture at the moment, if I can put it that way. So what the transformer architecture did is that computers didn't have to read each and every single line of a text or something like that, transformers actually allow the computer to read an entire sentence and be able to understand what is the sequence of different words and how they relate to each other. So they trained. So what this meant is that using the transformer architectures, the machine learning models could actually be trained over massive amounts of text, human text and stuff like that, and be able to understand the relationship, and therefore if you ask a particular question in a certain sequence, it will actually predict what is the best answer based on whatever context and all of that. So that was a major breakthrough. It's one of the biggest breakthroughs, because now generative AI has become so popular, and it has actually resulted to so much investment in the space, which is actually allowing companies to think more in terms of how can they actually do better. So the 2017 was actually very important, and interestingly, this was actually developed by a team at Google, Google researchers, and this is what really transformed the world that we see in today's AI space. All those AI agents and all those cloud of the world and the amazing things that they're actually doing is due to the invention of the transformers. So in essence, that is actually the history of AI. And if you're wondering where we came from, that's where we actually come from. There's still a lot that's going to happen, but in all honesty, I think this technology is going to transform the way we see things, really going to transform society overall. But it's very important for us to understand where exactly we come from in the AI space. But I'm going to be releasing more videos discussing more thought-provoking topics on how this is going to change the workspace, how different industries are being affected, and what you can really do to ensure that you protect yourself from this technology, just in case I know there's a lot of people that are left behind. So this series is really going to be for that, to help you guys understand what is AI and what you need to do to stay ahead of the curve. And if you guys like this video, please make sure that you like and subscribe so that more people can actually see my channel and all of that. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the second episode.